Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a good week. I am joined once again by the man I call Father. As of recording this, we are exactly 2 weeks away from the Bills season opener against the New York Jets. We got the schedule here, and we're just going to kind of talk about the Bills roster and predict how we think they're going to fare in this season. How's that sound?
Sounds good to me.
All right, let's get right into it. As I just said, our Week 1 game is a home game against the New York Jets. Obviously, the pandemic home field advantage doesn't really mean much this season.
I was kind of concerned at the beginning, at first, when they announced that there wouldn't be any fans in the game, in the stands. But then, the Bills' home record hasn't been that great the last few years, even under Sean McDermott.
Yeah.
So whatever perceived home field advantages that people think they have because of the quote-unquote Bills Mafia isn't really a real thing. I think the Bills are going to win home games this year. I think they're going to win them because they've got a really good team. But I don't think the fact that there's not going to be fans in the stands is going to be a big factor.
That being said, though, the Bills should handle the Jets. They should also handle the Dolphins, who they play in Week 2, even though I do think the Dolphins will be an improved football team this year.
And there will be fans in the stands for that game.
For the Dolphins game, that's right.
Not that many, but there will be some. Of course, now, on the other hand, if judging by the past performance in Miami is any indication, half of them will be Bills fans. But that's another story.
Yep.
And, Miami is going to, I don't think they're going to be very good by the second game of the season. It depends on who their quarterback is going to be, of course. If it's Tua, I doubt if he makes a big splash right from the beginning. If it's Fitz, they kind of know what they can do with Fitz,
I think they'll be a better team, but I still think they're a bit away from being competitive.
I think they will be a better team, too, and I think they were better at the end of last season than people thought. But I think the Bills have a better roster, and it's never been a place where they've had trouble winning.
We're not gonna go through the whole schedule game by game. We're just gonna kind of talk about the matchups that divisional matchups and matchups that we think are more noteworthy. But Week 3, I think we're gonna see our first real test. That's at home against the Rams. The Rams do have a pretty tough defense. They still have Aaron Donald, right?
They still have Aaron Donald. That's funny how that worm is kind of turned for the Rams. I mean, 2 years ago they were in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
And they were an offensive juggernaut, and their defense left a little to be desired. Now that's kind of turned, especially since people are having some questions about Jared Goff.
Yeah, you're right. They kind of lack for weapons on that
Gurley.
Offense. No Todd Gurley either. That's right, and they're going to be. They are coming off a bit of a disappointing season after their Super Bowl run 2 years ago, so it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back.
It's an interesting game. They are in a tough division.
They are.
So they could have a decent season. Their record not reflect it because the division is tough and so is their schedule. And I don't think they beat the Bills in Buffalo.
Yeah, I think it'll be a close game. I could see this being a low-scoring game, but yeah, I think the Bills probably have an edge on this one just because of the weapons we have on offense.
Well, let's talk about the Bills' offense a little bit. I mean, let's face it, if they're gonna be better than they were last year, it's probably gonna have to be on that side. It's hard to believe their defense was really good last year, and they could probably be a little bit better, but if they're gonna be the team they want to think they are, then they're gonna need to be more effective on offense. So how are they gonna do that?
Well, Josh Allen's gonna have to take more steps forward this season. I think you could make the argument that he progressed in his second year, but he's still gonna have to be better than what he was a season ago. And all reports coming out of training camp suggest that will be the case, but I know how you think. You're not going to believe it until you see it on the field in Week 1.
No question. I'm not going to believe it until I see it on the field in Week 1. I mean, I think there's the potential for him to get better there, and I mean certainly. And I'm not just saying that because he needs to be better, but let's face it, they added some guys.
Yeah.
And
there's no excuse anymore for him to be mediocre. He's got all the weapons he needs now.
He's got the weapons. I think the running back combo is going to be pretty solid. The offensive line still gives me cause for concern. especially now with Feliciano out. But even I mean, Feliciano was good last year, and he certainly is a key component of that line because of his toughness and his leadership. But I kind of think that they could do better in at that position, and who that's going to be, I don't know if they know at this point.
Yeah, well, at this point, they're just going to go with what they got and hope for the best.
So what do they got?
They have Mitch Morse at center, who was able to get through last season healthy, I think. I think he only missed one game last year.
One or two, I can't remember.
They still don't really know what they're going to do with Cody Ford.
Well, that's the key, isn't it? I mean, if they're going to move Ford inside, then that means Nsheki is going to be outside at the tackle. He only played half the season last year.
Yeah.
So are they looking at another situation where if he gets hurt, Ford goes back out there, and then who plays that guard position?
They got Quentin Spain locked down. That was an extension that needed to happen.
Move. Well, they need Dawkins to be the anchor of the line.
That's true too.
They just invested more money in him. They they think they gave him the kind of money that an elite left tackle should make, and he's not there yet. Now that doesn't mean he can't get there, but it does mean he needs to be better than he was last year.
I think there's potential for this offensive line to be better if Ford can develop and Dawkins can prove he's worth the money. I'm a big Quentin Spain fan.
But that just takes us back to who is going to play that right guard position.
Right guard, yeah. Oh, they got that. What was his name? They signed him from the Panthers. Darrell Williams.
And apparently he's had a pretty good training camp.
Yeah.
And obviously McDermott knows him. To me, that's the biggest question about their offense. I think
the line, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Diggs is going to be good. I of course, like everybody, I love John Brown.
Yeah.
I'm just hoping he can stay healthy because he's never been able to stay healthy 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Beasley is solid.
Beasley's great. I love Beasley.
They've got some guys in behind them.
You'll be looking for Dawson Knox to have a breakout season, possibly.
Yeah. I don't think I'm looking for that as much as most people are. I think he can be a solid guy. I think Croft is going to be a bigger factor than he was last year, and I think the Bills still like Croft. I think Sweeney's probably in trouble. I think Jason Kroom's in trouble.
Yeah.
I think Lee Smith is in trouble. They'll keep 3 tight ends, but it's only 3.
Lee Smith was an absolute liability for them last season.
That's true.
I would be shocked if he is still on the roster come opening day.
Yeah.
Moving on let's jump ahead to Week 6 because that game, it's a primetime game actually. We're taking on the defending Super Bowl champs, the Kansas City Chiefs. That one, we play the Titans before that one. They might give us some trouble. This was probably the first game on the schedule that I could see not going our way. The Chiefs are just way too good. Patrick Mahomes is just way too good, I think, to be able to be contained.
That's a fun matchup.
It'll be a good matchup, though.
I can't wait to see it. That'll be the game I'm gonna be a little disappointed that there won't be fans in the stands for.
Yeah, absolutely.
And not because I think it's a huge advantage for the Bills.
Yeah, it's a home game for the Bills, but the Chiefs also have a very loyal fan base.
Right, but I don't think it's a huge advantage for the Bills to be playing in front of their home fans, but it's a fun matchup, and having the stadium full and loud just makes it more fun.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, so that's probably that. I'm looking forward to that game. That's going to be a good game, and I don't necessarily rule out the idea that they couldn't win that game. I mean, the Chiefs are obviously everything they're cracked up to be, but the Bills' defense.
The Bills' defense are good, and this is going to be a big, I guess you could call it coming of age game, because really the narrative of last season was that they had a soft schedule and were only beating the teams that they were supposed to be beating. This game, if the Bills were able to pull it off, will silence everybody who has been saying that.
Yes, I agree with that. I think they're going to have a good season this year. I think they're pretty well loaded, as loaded as they probably could be.
Yeah. It's a tougher schedule, though.
It's a tougher schedule, but they should be better.
Yeah.
And they can't be looking at the idea that oh, Kansas City's coming in, they're defending Super Bowl champs. Well, that's a loss. They got to be thinking.
You gotta be thinking every game's a win.
And let's face it, the Bills were a playoff team last year. They almost beat the Texans. They should have beaten the Texans. Kansas City's not coming into that game thinking, oh, it's Buffalo, it's a cakewalk.
Yeah.
They're thinking that's going to be a tough game for us, and it will be.
I don't know. I just think Patrick Mahomes is way too good. He's far and beyond the best quarterback in the league right now, in my opinion. But that will be a fun game to watch.
He's great.
Yeah.
And it'll be fun to watch him match up against the Bills' defense.
And against Josh Allen. I mean, both those guys have cannons for arms.
Well, that's the measuring stick.
Yeah.
For Allen, for sure.
And then, is that our first? Yeah, it's our first game against the Patriots, it's our first post-Tom Brady matchup against the Patriots. I think we should talk about that just because of the significance of it, is we won't be playing Tom Brady this year.
What week is that?
That is week 8, I think.
That's the first matchup against the Patriots?
Yeah, that's the first Patriots game.
I'm not one of the believers that thinks that just because they signed Cam Newton, all of a sudden they're on their way to their 25th Super Bowl or whatever the number is.
I don't think that either, but if you put our team loyalties aside for a minute, I do think the Cam Newton signing was a smart one. It gives them some stability at that position. It gives them something they've badly needed at that position, which is some mobility. A guy who can run in the backfield.
I don't agree that it gives them stability at that position because he hasn't played a full season in probably 3 years. So if you're gonna tell me that he's going to start 14 or 15 games for them and he's going to give them stability at that position, I believe that's a long shot.
I think so too, but before we were talking about whether or not Brian Hoyer or Jarrett Stidham was going to be their starting quarterback. At least with Cam Newton, they know who they have, they know what they're going in with. But like you said, if he gets hurt, they're back to square one.
Which is why I just don't believe that the Patriots are going to be a major factor in the division. I mean,
I don't either.
The Brady thing was not good for them. Brady was not that great last year. They won games because of their defense.
Yeah.
And they lost some guys on that defense.
Yeah.
It's not just they didn't just lose Brady and everybody's back. They lost some guys that played big roles for them last year.
Yeah. And
I don't think their defense is going to be as good. I don't think their offensive line is going to be good at all. And
their offensive line is a train wreck.
And I think that Newton is probably well past the high point of his career, and I don't see them winning half their games.
I would agree. Newton's probably past his prime. Yeah, I mean, again, putting the team loyalties aside and the fact that they're a division rival, even if you're not a Bills fan, I don't see how you could possibly make the case that the Patriots will be competing for the division title this year unless the Bills colossally underperform expectations.
I think that's what it would take for the Patriots to be a factor in the division. Now, there is one other thing that we haven't talked about with the Patriots that is kind of and I hesitated to call it the X factor, but it's kind of, they do have one thing. They do have a guy we haven't named yet. And he's a force to be reckoned with for sure. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I don't think I do.
Really?
It's Belichick,
it's
right?
Belichick.
Yeah.
Yes.
Belichick knows how to coach.
Yes.
He's made lemonade out of lemons before on that team.
He absolutely has, and then you really can't underrate. You really can't underrate any team that he's coaching. He's a factor. But I just look at I'll say it again. I just think the Bills have a stronger roster. And I think that's going to be reflected in the team's final records.
So we'll move on from the Patriots conversation. They wanted to hear our thoughts on the Patriots, though.
Sure. I did not want to hear that, to tell you the truth. I could care less about the Patriots, but that's a whole other story.
I think it's at least worth mentioning. It's been one of the biggest narratives of the offseason.
It'll be worth mentioning when they go 2-14.
That's a little strong, but Moving on. The game after that will be the Seahawks. The Seahawks are always a tough out, but I think the Bills could probably handle them. The Seahawks defense is not what it used to be.
No, it's not. But where that game is in Buffalo also.
Yeah.
Tough game. Seahawks are always tough. Their defense is you're right. It's probably not as good, but it's always good. And they probably have this. In my opinion, and I know there's people out there that will choke on their chips when they hear me say this, but I think they have the second best quarterback in football.
I was going to say Russell Wilson is was an absolute beast last season for them, and they got weapons.
Tremendous.
They got weapons on that offense too. They got DK Metcalf, who had a strong rookie season. Tyler Lockett is turning into a big star for them. They still don't have much of a running game.
Well,
but
and I was just going to say on a team that wants to run the ball, they don't have a real strong running game.
yeah, but I mean, who needs to run the ball though when Russell Wilson does the things he does?
It's tremendous. I love that guy.
Yeah. That'll be a tough game, but I think I get a little nervous when I think the Bills might have to get into an offensive shootout with somebody, but I think the Bills defense could go toe to toe with just about anybody.
Oh, I think if there's any game on the schedule that looks like it's going to be a defensive slugfest, it's going to be that one.
Really, that one?
Yeah.
I don't think the Seahawks defense. I think you overestimate how good their defense still is.
Okay.
It wasn't that they didn't look that good last year on defense.
All right.
But I do want to talk about this matchup because I think this could be like one of the under the radar best games of the schedule, and that's the Cardinals game. I really like that. I really like this matchup. I think the Bills should win it. Kyler Murray, I think it'll. They're kind of in a similar quarterback position. A lot of their future depends on the development of Kyler Murray. But I think there's a lot about this matchup to be excited about. Trey White gets another crack at DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, well, I don't know how excited he is about that. But,
yeah.
But no, that's true. And I would say that the Cardinals are probably going to there's going to be more of a concerted effort on the Cardinals' part to make Hopkins a big part of their offense than there was in Houston. If Murray can stay healthy and get the ball out to some of those guys, they're going to be dangerous, no question about it.
Yeah, and
I don't know much about them, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, they're a young team, but they've got a lot of upside. They have Christian Kirk, who was excellent for them last season. Adding DeAndre Hopkins was much like what the Stephon Diggs trade was to us. Yeah. And they have a strong running game. They picked up Kenyon Drake at the deadline last year.
Yeah.
I think the Cardinals could surprise some people in their own division if everything goes right for them.
Again, that is such a tough division. I mean, that's a tough division.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all four of those teams. I mean, if you buy into the fact that the Cardinals are going to be much improved and have a good team, all four of those teams could make a splash. I mean, they're just. That's a tough division. Probably certainly in my mind the toughest in football.
But the next game, this is the game that I think most Bills fans have circled on their schedule, and that's the 49ers game in Santa Clara, week. What is that? 13, I think. Week 13, I think, in prime time. Obviously, two very strong defenses will be colliding. This is another one I think could turn into a bit of a low-scoring game just because of how good both defenses are. It also two strong running back combos going at it too. You got, is Mostert still there in San Francisco?
I believe so.
They got Mostert and. They don't have Tevin Coleman anymore, I don't think.
I'm not sure, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
I know who they do have, who is going to be a headache for the Bills and many other teams, and that's Kittle.
Yeah, Kittle is he's the guy you have to game plan for on this team.
Yeah. We've been going on the assumption that the Bills are going to have a strong defense again, and I think that's a pretty safe assumption. But so where are they? I mean, they've changed. They've changed some personnel there for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, where are the potential holes? Where do we think they're going to have to fill? Where do we think they're going to be better?
On our defense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the most glaring hole for the Bills defense right now is that cornerback position opposite Trey White. Josh Norman, his health is in question right now going into week 1.
Makes me a little nervous that they picked up the guy that Allen from Pittsburgh this week.
And I mean, since McDermott has been here, they really haven't. They really haven't had a strong counterpart to Trey White in the cornerback position.
Well, obviously they still like Levi Wallace, and I don't know that I'm ready to, to give up on him just yet. He's going to play a lot this year.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a pipe dream. I don't know, but maybe he's just one of those guys that keeps getting better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not like he's been horrible.
Yeah.
It's not like he's been he's been invisible over there. He's made some plays. He's not terrible.
Yeah. But he's the guy that other teams are going to pick on, though, on that defense.
Without question.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that take. He kind of struck me last season as a guy who was really playing over his head at the start of the season and then kind of came back down to earth. I think the Levi Wallace that we saw end the season is probably closer to the real Levi Wallace than the one we saw start the season.
So
I don't like saying that, but
there's no room for improvement there, in your opinion.
I think there's definitely room for improvement, but
you don't think he's capable of it.
I don't really know what he's capable of right now.
I'm not saying he's going to be all pro this year. I'm just saying he's been a serviceable guy over there the last couple of years, and an improvement would make him better. And I'm not ruling that out. Now, that doesn't mean Josh Norman might not be starting by the 5th game of the season. But
yeah, well, they signed Josh Norman. I think that in itself is a sign that they think they could do better than Levi Wallace.
I think that's true.
I don't know. I don't think I'm a believer quite yet. He's gonna have to prove himself this season if he gets on the field. I think
that's fair. He's going to be on the field, barring an injury. He's gonna play.
Moving on, 3 games left in the schedule. The final game of the season will be against the Dolphins. We already talked about them. Game after the Niners game will be another primetime game against a primetime rematch actually against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That should be. I don't know. I don't think that game will be as tough as it was last season, just because of the offensive improvements we've made.
And that's the next to last game of the season.
No, that's the third last game. Next to last is the Broncos, which I think the Broncos might be an interesting matchup depending on how their season goes too.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm not even. I'm not that worried about the Steelers either. I know they're getting Roethlisberger back, but I don't know where. Other than that, I don't know where they've made major improvements. And I think by then, I'm going to say something you've heard me say a million times since you've been a football fan. Those are 2 games, the Steelers and the Broncos. If they're the team that they think they are, those have got to be wins.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
If they're the team they want to be, those can't be losses.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's much really to talk about either of these games. I do think the Broncos could potentially be a better team than they were this past season. That will all depend on how Drew Lock improves for them. But, I don't think the Broncos will give them much trouble. I don't think the Steelers will give them any trouble either. The Steelers are
yeah. So pick the number. We haven't talked about they have a new kicker.
Oh, yeah. So Stephen Hauschka is no longer a Buffalo Bill. We are now apparently going with Tyler Bass.
The era of Tyler Bass has begun.
I don't get it. I get they can't really have 2 kickers on their roster, but did we really think that Tyler Bass was going to be an improvement over Stephen Hauschka coming off a down season? Do we think Stephen Hauschka in his worst season is worse than Tyler Bass, than a rookie 5th round kicker? 6th round kicker?
I don't think that I don't think you can just dismiss the idea that Steve Hauschka had a bad year. He has not been able to effectively kick from long range for a year and a half. And his touchback ratio on kickoffs is one of the worst in the league. Yeah. So clearly his leg strength is not what it used to be. And I think I know people. We've talked about this before. I firmly believe that had they had confidence in him to kick a 55-yard field goal at the end of that game in Houston, then that that game could have turned out differently, but they obviously did not.
Yeah.
And they don't want to. They don't want to start the season with that again.
Yeah. I'm not trying to downplay how much Stephen Hauschka struggled last season. I just don't buy the fact that they honestly think Tyler Bass is a better option.
Well, maybe they don't. I mean, there's always kickers out there for sure, but you don't draft a kicker with the idea that you're just going to bring him in, make a few kicks to push the incumbent. Okay?
Yeah.
You draft a kicker with the idea this guy has a chance to make the roster. So the minute they did that, they put Hauschka on notice.
Yeah.
And, what's going to happen with this guy when the lights come on and he's kicking in a real game and they need a clutch 49-yard field goal at some point in the game? Who knows?
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? They don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
But I think when you need a 54 or 55-yard field goal at any time during the game, the Bills obviously had no confidence in Hauschka's ability to make that kick to a point where they didn't even try them in a few occasions.
Yeah.
And, he cost them the Cleveland game.
Cost him the Cleveland game. That's true.
So.
Yeah, I get why they did it. I don't I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with it.
So pick them. What's your pick for the record?
For the record, if we're going by the expectation that they'll be better than last season, obviously that's going to depend on how Josh Allen develops, and you're going to be hearing that a lot at the start of this season. Mm-hmm. But I think they should sweep the Jets. I think they should sweep the Dolphins. I honestly think they should sweep the Patriots too, but I would be willing to allow for maybe a split, but they should at least win one game against the Patriots. Other than that, I could see the Chiefs beating us. I could see the 49ers giving us some trouble. I could also see that Rams and Seahawks game being tough for them. I'm gonna say the Bills comfortably win their division, and I'm gonna say they finish with a 12-4 record.
Wow, that's exactly what I'm gonna say.
Really?
Yes, I see I see losses to the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Seahawks, and probably one other in there that nobody expects them to lose.
Yeah.
And then I see 12-4.
Yeah,
I see a first round playoff win.
First round playoff win. Yeah, that's gonna be the thing. If they go to the playoffs again and lose after in the first round, it's gonna be a disappointing season. The goal is no longer just get to the dance.
Correct.
You got to get there and win now.
Correct.
And I think we can leave it at that. Thank you all very much for watching. Before we close this video, I'd like to ask you on a personal note to please keep Chadwick Boseman and his family in your prayers during this devastating tragedy that they are going through.
And if I might just add, I don't know if your group knows that we're in Buffalo, New York. Obviously, we are.
Yeah.
But Clifford Robinson was a player that I saw play in high school. Longtime NBA player, great career, great guy, and he also passed away over the weekend. And same thing, just the second best player ever to come out of Buffalo in basketball.
Yeah.
So keep him in your prayers and his family as well.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would definitely encourage you to be in prayer for those two souls and their family. Thank you very much for watching. Have a blessed week, and we will see you in the next video.
Stay safe, everyone.
And go Bills!
Go Bills!